Okay, we're talking about Micah's mother for our December Bible study. And I will be coming from Judges 17. And it says, and I'm reading from the New Living Translation version. Verse 1. There was a man named Micah who lived in the hill country of Ephraim. And this is Micah. This is a different Micah. This is not the prophet Micah who has his own Bible, book of the Bible in the Old Testament. This is a different Micah. And it says, one day he said to his mother, I heard you place a curse on the person who stole 1,100 pieces of silver from you. Well, I have that money. It's my place. Well, I have that money. I was the one who took it. And the mother replied, the Lord bless you for admitting it. He returned the money to her and she said, I now dedicate these silver coins to the Lord. In honor of my son, I will have an image carved and an idol cast. So when he returned the money to his mother, she took 200 silver coins and gave them to a silversmith who made them into an image and an idol. And these were placed in Micah's house. Micah set up a shrine for the idol and he made a sacred ephod and some household idols. Then he installed one of his sons as his personal priest. In those days, Israel had no king. All the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. Verse 7 says, one day a young Levite who had been living in Bethlehem in Judah arrived in that area. He had left Bethlehem in search of another place to live, and as he traveled, he came to the hill country of Ephraim. He happened to stop at Micah's house as he was traveling through. Where are you from? Micah asked him. He replied, I am a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, and I am looking for a place to live. Stay here with me, Micah said, and you can be a father and priest to me. I will give you 10 pieces of silver a year, plus a change of clothes and your food. The Levite agreed to this, and the young man became like one of Micah's sons. So Micah installed the Levite as his personal priest, and he lived in Micah's house. And verse 13 says, I know the Lord will bless me now, Micah said, because I have a Levite serving as my priest. So, like I mentioned, this Micah is not the same Micah who we have a book of the Bible named after. That Micah is a separate Micah. He is a minor prophet, and we say minor because of the length of his book. So this story takes place shortly after the death of Joshua. You know, Joshua rose up to be the leader of the Israelites. And so we're at the point where we're in Judges, and we're at the point where the Lord has raised up Joshua. They've had Moses, and the children of Israel are still disobedient. They don't want to listen. They don't want a leader. They want a king like everybody else in these other countries around them have had kings. They don't want judges. They don't want a prophet to lead them. They don't want the man of God to lead them. They want a king like everybody else. So we're at a place where Joshua has died, and at this point, they don't have a king yet. And we are at the house of a young man named Micah. And I'm not going to even say Micah is young, because we learned later that he has a son who's old enough to be a priest, but you have to be of a certain age to be a priest. But we're talking about his mom. And so mom must be fairly old that she has a grandson who can be a priest. So we're looking at verse 1, and the name Micah means who is like God, which I like because my son's name is Micah, which is a variation of Micah. And typically when people use the name Micah in biblical times, and even today because it applies to me, is that when you like when you meet a child who has a name that is faith-based, we tend to believe or just assume or infer that that means that their parents are believers. And so that's exactly what you would think. You meet Micah, and then you assume that, oh, his parents must be devout believers. They must be devout Christians. Then we look at verse 2, and Micah approaches his mom and he says, I heard you place a curse on the person who stole money from you. This person stole 11 pieces of silver, which is about 28 pounds of silver. And Micah, because he heard this curse, whatever mama said about what she wanted to happen to the person who stole from her, it prompted Micah to confess. And he said, well, I have the money. I was the one who took it. And immediately his mother replied, the Lord bless you for admitting it. And so just because Micah confessed, his mom was ready to forgive him and then even willing to bless him. And that was her attempt to try to reverse the curse. You know, like if you say, like you wish something bad happened to somebody and then you say, Lord, forgive me, and you try to pray something differently. It's the essence of what Micah's mother did. So she cursed the person who she thought stole from her. When she found out it was her son, she tried to switch it out and reverse the curse with a blessing. But the fact that she did it in the name of the Lord is what I want us to be, pay attention to. But what she teaches us here, which is a good thing, that we are supposed to forgive. And she shows us that it's important to forgive and to forgive quickly. But she did not rebuke him. She didn't tell him, hey, you wrong for that. Like, she didn't say anything to chastise him for his behavior. She just forgave him, and she was seemingly ready to move forward with it. And so what that tells us is, even when we forgive a person, we have to be ready to let them know that what they did was wrong, and then encourage them to do better, to do something different moving forward. Because if I just forgive you and I don't tell you, especially when you do something that sinned against me, like, it would be one thing if Micah just stole money and it didn't, like, it will still be wrong, but maybe his mama didn't chastise him for stealing from somebody else, but he stole from you. So especially when somebody does something wrong to me, and for me to just say, I forgive you, but not to tell them how that affects me and how that was wrong, silently gives a cosign to their behavior, and then they're likely to do it again. So you ever meet a person where, like, you're in a relationship or some type of maybe a friendship, and then they do something to you and then you forgive them, but you never told them what they did hurt, how it made you feel. So when they do it again and you was like, you say you always do X, Y, and Z, and they're like, I didn't know that bothered you. But it's because you never told them that what you did is wrong. You forgave them, but perhaps you only forgave them because they confessed or they made a comment about how they behaved. It wasn't because you called them out. And so we got to be mindful that we're supposed to forgive, and forgive quickly, because of, for our sake, we want to forgive quickly. But we also want to make sure that when people sin, and especially when those people sin against us, that we encourage them to change your life, don't do this again, and to do the right thing. So then moving forward in verse 3, we see, because we have just witnessed the mom, trying to reverse the curse. Micah's mom is trying to reverse the curse, and she is saying, the Lord bless you. She's trying to bless her son now, and she's doing it in the name of the Lord. It appears that she's a godly woman. It appears that she believes as she's named her son, right? Because she's showing some godly knowledge, some godly wisdom in understanding that only the name of the Lord can reverse a curse. So she seems godly. And then we see in verse 4, she even makes us feel like she's a little bit more godly when she gets the money, she tells her son, okay, I'm gonna dedicate this money to the Lord. I'm gonna consecrate it. That word consecrate means I'm going to set this aside for a religious purpose. I'm going to use this for the Lord, until we see what specifically she's going to do with the money. In verse 3, she says, in honor of my son, I will carve an image and have an idol created. Now, during that time, it was a violation of the second commandment to carve any image, even if they were doing it in the likeness of God. The Lord did not want them to worship any idols. Didn't matter what reason it was, because he didn't want them to focus more on an object and not focus on him and his presence. So this shows us that you could be doing a good thing. Maybe they thought it was a good thing to have a symbol or something that that was a symbol for the Lord, but it was a violation of something that he told these people to not do. As a violation of the second commandment. So although initially she seemed godly, like she had some understanding about the things of the Lord, now we're second guessing it because she specifically said, we're going to have an idol cast. And we're just guessing that her idol was going to be a symbol as unto the Lord. It could have been a false god. We don't even know what type of idol she's going to create, but we know she's going to create an idol. And so then what she decides to do is she only took 200 pieces of coins, which is what she eventually or finally decided to consecrate instead of the whole 1,100 for a religious purpose. She only consecrated or set aside 200 pieces of silver, gave that to the silversmith so that they can create an idol. And then we don't know what else she did with the 900 pieces of silver that was left over. So this is two things I want us to learn from just these two verses 3 and 4. The first thing that we need to learn is that we do not have to always experience or witness the behavior of a person to know their intent, to know their heart, to know their mind. If we could just be quiet long enough to just listen to what some of the stuff that they have to say. The fact that 1 minute sis Micah's mother was cursing, and then in the next moment she was spitting out a blessing in the name of the Lord. That was enough to show us, okay, something's not right here. That even though she did bless in the name of the Lord, the fact that she could curse with the same mouth, almost, I don't know how long ago the curse happened, but whatever she said was scary enough for her own son to admit to her that he had stolen from her. So whatever she said, I don't know, I have no idea, what she said. I have a few ideas about what she may have said, but it was harmful enough or scary enough that it made her son confess. And then in the next moment, she's blessing in the name of the Lord. So we also need to be mindful when we're experiencing people, when we're dealing with people, that we don't always have to experience or we don't always have to witness their behavior or their actions or their words or whatever. Their actions, their behavior, their attitude, to know what their intent is, even if we're seeing them do it with somebody else. If we just listen to what they have to say, people always say, like, if they bring in you gossip, they taking it back from you too. Like, we don't have to know that a person does that by actually seeing them playing both sides or witnessing them playing both sides. We can just listen to what they have to say. People who, if I see you talking to somebody, and I know you just got finished talking about them to me, like some things people tell on themselves. And I think this is a good example that we need to be more mindful, needs to be more discerning. And that's why I know the Lord gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, because he wants us to hear better than we're listening, twice as well as we are speaking. He wants us to hear twice as well as we are speaking, because he doesn't want us to have to experience every person. Like, I don't have to date a man to know what his intent is, like get all the way into dating. I just get to know him or have a conversation with him, and he mess around and tell me about why him and his ex are not together. That may be enough information for me. But if we do not learn to be good listeners and to listen with purpose, to listen with intention, and try to hear what the undertone is, like what they're not saying explicitly, but what they're saying undertone, and we can just be more mindful about that, we'll save ourselves like a world of trouble. So we got to be mindful and learn to listen. And then the second thing that this verse teaches us, Micah's mother, and I understand as a mom, but she didn't seem to be bothered by the fact that your own son could be the one who stole from you. And this was a good chunk of money. I think when I was studying, I think they were saying that, like, I think he promised 10 pieces a year for the person who worked for him. This is 1,100 pieces at one time. This might have been his mom's savings. The fact that he stole from his mama, and then he obviously didn't have no remorse about it or didn't feel no way about stealing from his own mom. And it seems to be the only reason why he confessed is because he heard her cursing the person who stole from him. But the fact that she found out that it was her son who stole from her, she doesn't seem to exhibit any type of anger, to even really be bothered by the fact that it was him. And so as a result, she, you know, when she gets these coins, she's like, okay, now when she gets her coins back, I'm going to have an image created in the name of my son. And so we have to be mindful about religion that is man-pleasing, that's man-originated, or that's man-centered. And how do we recognize it? It's because it only exists to serve and or please man, not God. You have lost your savings. Somebody has stole your savings, $1,100. We're going to assume that this woman is a widow because there's no mention about a husband or about Micah's father. So we're going to assume, which the man would probably typically be the one leading any religious whatever in the house. So the fact that she goes to pay the silversmith seems to say that she may be involved in leading or involved in decision makings about the type of worship or how they practice their worship. But the fact that somebody stole your savings and then you found out that it was your son, and then what you decide to do in turn is to serve or to do something that pleases him, that honors him. And that is our sign for religion that is man-pleasing, that is only originated for and by men. And I want us to be mindful about that because a lot of us are sitting in churches where it exists to please man. You know that there are some churches that were only founded because they couldn't get a specific leadership position in their Reformation. You know, maybe they wanted to be bishop and couldn't see like a way or a path to success in their Reformation of faith or in their denomination of faith. And so they decided to create their own so that they can become bishop. And the word says that the Lord would give us pastors, that he would call them and he would give us pastors after his own heart. But the fact that people are creating things for themselves because they didn't get an opportunity somewhere else could very well be the source of religion that was created to please man. And so we have to be mindful about that we're not even involved with ministries. We're not serving in ministries where it's focused on pleasing or serving the man and the Lord is not there. Like it's focused on the servant and not the savior. So we have to be mindful about that. Moving forward, she gets this idol created, and then once it's finished, they bring it back to Micah's house. And once Micah gets it, he sets up a shrine for the idol, and he made a sacred ephod, which is a garment that priests wore, which is a sacred garment. And he had some other household idols in this shrine, and then had the nerve to install one of his own sons as his personal priest. So another law that the Israelites has was the Levitical law, which dictated specifically who could be a priest, who could serve as a priest, how you became a priest, the sacred garments that priests wore, the sacred practices that priests participated in. And so here you have a person who they now have an idol. They've set up a shrine in their house, which goes against another Israelite law that there was not supposed to be any personal places of worship, places or personal centers of worship. Like the temple was the place that you were supposed to go and worship. So that meant nobody could like create a church in their own house. You went to the temple for that. And so you know how, I don't know if y'all ever been to a Catholic church or to a Catholic person's house. Not saying it's a shrine, but I'm just using this as an example of what a shrine would look like. You ever been to a Catholic person's house and they have like the statue of Mary, and then they have all these beads and stuff around it, and they have candles and all the other pictures of saints? That would be something similar to what Micah had created in his house, a shrine of an idol or somebody to be worshipped. Now, people who do worship Mary is an idol. There was nothing divine about Mary. She was a human being who was chosen to bring Jesus into the world. But nowhere in the Bible does the scripture tell us that we should be praying to her or that we should even honor her because of that. But people who do pray to Mary and they honor them, like those are shrines. Sometimes they're in churches too. Like there'll be like a corner of the church that has a lot of photos of saints and candles and stuff. You ever see anybody who passes away, like something tragic, and you see teddy bears and photos and candles? Those are shrines. Now people aren't trying to worship those shrines when people pass away, but that's what an image of a shrine is. So this is what Micah has in his house, but it's idol worship, because the Lord has made it clear that you're not supposed to be making any images or of any idols of any gods. And we don't know if he was making an image of something that was supposed to symbolize God, or if he was making images of Baal or what other false gods there were, but he has this in his house. And so because he's created this shrine, like you would do at a church, when you have sacred garments, sacred, tables or boxes or sacred instruments, how you have priests at the temple who kept watch over those things. Micah decided that he needed a priest in his house. And so what he did was he installed his son as his own priest. So in essence, Sir was creating his own religion in his own house and didn't even know about it. And then verse 6 says, in those days, Israel had no king, and all the people did whatever seemed right in their eyes. And that is exactly how they got here, is because they did not have a king to say. They had a king, they had the Lord, but they wanted a physical king. But because they did not have a physical king, they didn't have anybody to set up any boundaries for them. So everybody was doing whatever they wanted to do. And so what this shows us is that Micah's mother contributed to his sin. Sis knows her son. I'm sure she knew her son. That's why she knew it would please him to honor him by creating an idol and giving it to him, because she knows him. But she contributed to his sin. She also paved the way for his idol worship. I don't know if he had a shrine before she created this for him, but she paved the way for his idol worship, or she at least added to it if he already had a shrine. And it also demonstrates to us something that we cannot do. We cannot pick and choose what part of the gospel that we want to obey. So like, she wanted to use the Lord's name to reverse the curse. But when it came to worshiping the one true God, they weren't following the directions. They were worshiping idols. They were doing other things. And then here Micah is violating the law even more, because he's created a shrine. He's created his own version of the sacred garments. He's over here appointing priests. And so they're picking apart what they want to abide by and what they want to obey. But at this point, it's so much lawlessness, it's so much spiritual sin and spiritual confusion. People are looking to their own selves to guide them, their moral and their ethical behavior. And this is because they did not want to obey God. They did not want to obey God. And so they were depending on themselves to lead themselves, whatever they felt like was right or what they should be doing. They looked to themselves to do that. And as a result, this was like the height of idol worship when it came for this particular tribe of Israelites. And so that's why we have it here in Judges, just to show us how morally low that the Israelites got. I mean, these are God's chosen people, like chosen. Can you imagine the Lord saying, these are my people, I'm gonna put my stamp on them, like these are my people, my blood runs through their veins? And they're like, nope, don't need them, don't want to listen to them, no thanks, thanks but no thanks. And this is exactly how these people they did, and they believed that they were right. They felt like what they were doing were right, but they felt like that because they were measuring themselves through their own eyes. And so we have to be mindful about that. We cannot pick and choose what part of the gospel that we want to abide by. Like, we want his goodness, we want his mercy, we want his favor. But you can keep that submission. You can keep that That's suffering. You can keep that self-control, but you want all these other things. It's all or nothing, like total surrender. I feel like this is what we talked about last month. Like he wants total surrender. I don't just want he doesn't just want us to only want him for the good, the good parts. That's just like being in a relationship with a person who only wants you for what you can provide for them. We would call them like a gold digger. So it would be the same with the Lord. Like we have to accept everything he has to offer to us and for us. And so we have to be mindful that we're not picking and choosing what parts of the Lord that we want or the parts that we prefer.